A one-season wonder is a player who performs exceptionally well for one season, but is unable to maintain that level of success in the following seasons. And in Scottish football, we've had quite a few players that fit that definition. This is every single one-season wonder in Scottish football. Marco Negri. Marco Negri is one of the first players that comes to mind when you think of one-season wonders in Scottish football. In the summer of 1997, Rangers paid £3.5 million to sign the Italian striker from Perugia. He was pretty unknown in the world of football. He'd spent his entire career in Italy, mainly playing in the second and third tier, but in the 96-97 season, which was his first full season in the Serie A, he'd had a strong year with Perugia, scoring 15 goals for a side that was relegated at the end of the season. So, on a recommendation from Rangers chief scout Ewan Chester, who said he'd be a 30-goal-a-season man in the SPL, Rangers signed him. He was exactly who they needed. Ali McCoist was nearing the end, and they were chasing a historic 10 league titles in a row. And what happened next felt unreal. Negri scored 15 goals in his first 7 league games, 23 goals in his first 10 matches. He scored in 10 consecutive games, setting a Scottish record, and barely reacted to any of them. He was one of the most laid-back players to ever play in Scotland. It took until November for him to play a game for the Gers without scoring a goal. But soon, it all started to go wrong for Marco Negri. An eye injury picked up playing squash with a teammate, at least that was the official story, started a brutal run of problems. Back issues, illnesses, fitness doubts, and at the end of that season, Celtic pipped Rangers to the title, and the 10-in-a-row dream was over. He'd make just 3 more appearances for Rangers, a loan spell and a return to Italy followed, but he never recaptured his form. The striker who looked unstoppable in Scotland was gone. For a few months, Marco Negri looked like one of the most lethal strikers Rangers had ever signed, but he goes down as a one-season wonder and one of Scottish football's greatest mysteries. Stefan Johansen. Stefan Johansen's 2014-15 season at Celtic was phenomenal. Celtic signed him from Strømsgodset in January 2014 for around £2 million. A tidy Norwegian midfielder, good engine, nice left foot, a creative player. But a year later, he was absolutely everywhere. Under Ronny Deila, Johansen became the heartbeat of Celtic's midfield. During the 2014-15 season, he played 56 games, scored 13 goals, and had 10 assists from midfield. By the end of that season, he'd won Celtic Player of the Year, he shared the Players' Player of the Year with Scott Brown, and at just 24 years old, it genuinely looked like Celtic had found their next midfield leader. And the hype for what he could achieve in the following season was real. But something happened, because the very next season, Johansen looked like a completely different player. His energy dipped and his output was way down. So by 2016, he was gone, off to Fulham, for a fee way less than Celtic would have hoped to get just a year ago. And while he's had a solid career since, that 2014-15 version of Stefan Johansson, it only existed for one season. Michael Higdon. If I'm making a video about one-season wonders in Scottish football, Michael Higdon's 2012-13 season has to be in the conversation. In the summer of 2011, Motherwell signed Higdon from St Mirren, and to be honest, there wasn't exactly much enthusiasm from Motherwell fans. He had a reputation as an old-school target man, a big lump, useful, but nothing special. Even Stuart McCall admitted that he wasn't the fans' first choice, and early on, Higdon didn't help himself. It took 6 games for him to score, which only made his job of becoming the Wells' main man even harder. But then something clicked. By the 2012-13 season, Higdon turned into an absolute monster. He scored 26 league goals, more than any Celtic player, and more than anyone in Scotland. He dragged Motherwell to second place in the league, and in doing so, he broke a 23-year run of Old Firm dominance when it came to winning the PFA Players' Player of the Year, the first non-Celtic or Rangers player to do so since 1990. And some of the goals he scored were brilliant. 40-yard screamers, an overhead kick, an ice-cold penalty against Celtic, complete with a water off a duck's back celebration aimed straight at Neil Lennon. And off the pitch, he wasn't exactly a model athlete. While everyone else was on protein shakes, Higdon recovered with a bottle of red wine in a plastic cup on the team bus. He'd played most of his career in Scottish football up to this point, but the 2012-13 season was by far his best. And it would be his last. Higdon left that summer, moved to Holland, where he apparently tripled his salary. But for one season, Michael Higdon wasn't just good, he was the best player in Scotland. Faisal El Bakhtaoui. El Bakhtaoui's 2015-16 season at Dunfermline is still remembered fondly by Pars fans. Born in Saint-Tropez, France, he originally arrived in Scotland as a trialist. The youngster found a home at Dunfermline during their financial troubles. His first couple of seasons were quiet, but in the 2014-15 season, he broke into the first team. Then, in the 2015-16 season, El Bakhtaoui went on an unreal run. 4 consecutive braces in his first 4 competitive matches, and 2 goals against Premiership side Dundee in the League Cup. By the end of August, he had 12 goals in 8 games, and was named the League One Player of the Month. Defenders couldn't live with him, and he was in the form of his life. By the end of the season, the numbers were ridiculous. 22 league goals, 30 in all competitions, some absolute wonder goals as well. The defining moment came in April, a hat-trick and a 3-1 win that sealed the League One title. Promotion secured, and El Bakhtaoui named the Dunfermline Player of the Year and the League One Player of the Year. At that point, it felt inevitable that Dunfermline wouldn't keep him. His contract was up, and he was on the move. He joined Dundee and did score some spectacular goals, one in the Dundee derby and one against Celtic, but the consistency was gone. His numbers dropped and he didn't look like the same player. He would return to Dunfermline on loan, but the move wasn't really a success. He later bounced between clubs where he now plays in Italy's 4th tier. Duke. If you watched any Scottish football in 2022-23, you'd know Duke was one of the best players in the league that year. Aberdeen signed him from Benfica B for €470,000. And after being bedded into the team slowly, he started to become a real fan favourite. Within months, he was one of the most feared forwards in the leagues. He bullied centre-backs, smashed in goals, and along with Miofsky, turned Pataudry into a nightmare for visiting teams. His form peaked in March as he won the Player of the Month award. And by the end of the season, he'd scored 16 league goals for an Aberdeen team that finished in 3rd place, and swept the club awards. Player of the Season, Players' Player of the Season, and even Goal of the Season. His performances in that season earned him a spot among the top 10 highest scoring African players in Europe that year, and it looked like Aberdeen had pulled off a masterstroke. The following season started brightly, but after a January move was blocked for him, his head dropped, and his performances followed. By the start of the next season, things completely unravelled. Duke didn't even report for pre-season, and when he eventually came back, it was clear he had no future with the Dons. By February 2025, he was gone, sold to Leganés in Spain. For one season, Duke looked like the next big thing in Scottish football, and then, just as fast, he suddenly wasn't. If you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, it massively helps out. Back to it. Nicky Clark. Nicky Clark has always been a pretty consistently okay player in Scottish football, but there was one season where he was absolutely unstoppable. His 2012-13 season at Queen of the South. When he joined Queen of the South in 2011, his first season was a struggle. 36 league games, 1 goal. Not a very good return for a striker. But the following season, something changed. His dad, Sandy Clark, joined the coaching staff, he built up a partnership with the returning Derek Lyle, and suddenly, Nicky Clark looked like a completely different player. And the goals just kept coming. Hat-tricks, braces, late winners. In the end, he finished the season with 41 goals in 46 games, and helped the club to their first ever double as they won the League and Challenge Cup. Clark was top scorer of one of the greatest Queen of the South teams ever. He scored in that Challenge Cup final and finished as the top scorer across all 4 leagues in Scotland. It earned him Player of the Year and a move to Rangers, where he'd play in the same league again. Surely he could repeat the success. But football doesn't always work like that. The goals slowed, and that incredible rhythm he found in 2012-13 never quite returned. Nicky Clark went on to have a solid career, but he would never get close to scoring 41 goals in a season ever again. Conor Sammon, the Fish, signed for Kilmarnock in 2008 and had a couple of bang average years in Scottish football. 1 league goal in the 2008-09 season, 1 league goal in the 2009-10 season. But in his 3rd year with Killie, the 2010-11 season, it all finally clicked. He formed an insanely effective partnership with Kilmarnock cult hero Alexei Eremenko. That season, they were brilliant, and by January, Conor Sammon had scored 18 goals in just 27 games, and Kilmarnock found themselves 4th place in the league. He wouldn't complete this fantastic season though, as on deadline day in January, Conor Sammon was off to the Premier League. Kilmarnock had cashed in and sold him to Wigan for £600,000. It was daylight robbery. He scored 1 Premier League goal in 32 appearances. And that half a season at Kilmarnock was the only time the big man ever got to double-digit league goals in his whole career. Stevie May. Look, I try and be as neutral and unbiased as I possibly can in these videos, but I can't say Stevie May is a one-season wonder, because after what he did in the 2013-14 season, to me, he's incredible every year. But what I will say is his 2013-14 season was so good, it made all his other seasons look bad in comparison. Stevie May came into the 2013-14 season off the back of a couple successful loan spells. Alloa, where he scored 19 in 22 league games, and Hamilton, where he scored 25 goals in 33 league games. So, now back with St Johnstone, he was ready to take his game to the next level. He scored the equaliser as St Johnstone beat Rosenborg in the Europa League, then scored 4 goals in his first 9 games, and that wasn't even his best form of the season. He scored and assisted 3 times in a 4-0 win against Cali Thistle, then scored another 4 goals in just the next 3 games, and won the Player of the Month for October. He stayed in good form for the rest of the season, scoring 20 goals in the league. But his biggest achievement that year was taking St Johnstone to the Scottish Cup final with a brace against Aberdeen. A final that would be on May the 17th, against Dundee United. And clearly desperate for a goal, he actually put one in with his hand. Unfortunately though, the refs were paying attention. St Johnstone wouldn't need it though, as they won 2-0 to lift their first ever major trophy. May scored 27 goals in all competitions, and would probably have been the young player of the season if it hadn't been for that pesky left back.